I got one more for you though, Steve. Yep. We touched on it in part 1. Auburn 7.5.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of Hugh Freeze being able to speak directly to the quarterback through the helmet.
Yep.
I think that helps Peyton Thorne an awful lot.
I totally agree. I'm really, really excited to see Auburn. I'm dying to see Cam Coleman and what I've heard from people that have seen him. Like,
did you see the still image floating around on the internet of the one-handed catch?
Yes.
The other day?
Yeah, that's exactly what I think. You know, when I hear people, I'm like, what's the? Oh God, he's built like a Greek god. He runs like a deer. You know, like the whole package. And then you just think about how Auburn has never had a guy like that at wide receiver. Like, you go through Auburn's wide receiver records, you'll be blown away at how attainable they are if Cam Coleman is the real deal.
I've tried to figure because Philip Dukes, who works with us, went to Auburn, and I said, Dukes, like, who has Auburn had? Like, did they ever sign a receiver that was this hyped? Who's like the best receiver in Auburn history? And he's like, I could name guys, but you're gonna be like, eh.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Frank Sanders. I
think Frank Sanders is the guy I'd name.
Great player. But when you look at the numbers, and now in this day and age, and then you just think about Hugh Freeze and who he's had and the success that he's had with players. I love this dynamic. He's just crushing it on the recruiting front. I love that fan base because of how crazy they are. And I want them. I really am rooting for Auburn and Florida this year in the SEC because those are the teams we need. When they're good, it's so much more fun. And I'm really hoping game day could get to Auburn. We haven't been there in a while. It's one of my favorite. I've said that earlier. One of my favorite places. And what I love about Auburn here is go back and look what they did. I get everybody brings up the New Mexico State, okay, but Alabama and Georgia were probably the best games they played, and they lost.
Mm-hmm.
They lost. And going back and watching the tape of the Auburn-Georgia game, like that really freaked me out with Carson Beck because if he doesn't make those throws, Auburn wins that game. Like what they needed to do and how precise. Like, they had one drive and they had to do it, and he was as good as I've seen in the sport. So that really opened me up to Carson Beck. But then I go back and look, like, they were put in that position because Hugh took the play call that week, and Peyton Thorne was ripping off 40-yard runs like it's nothing. And I think Peyton Thorne, again, go back and look at his receivers at Michigan State. They're pretty good. They're playing in the NFL.
Are you considering Keon Coleman was a good receiver?
Oh, God, I love Keon Coleman. So I think Peyton Thorne is going to be way, way more efficient. Having great players, I think, helps decision-making. Also, where, you get caught, in a tough spot and you don't have the best guys, what are you going to do? You're either going to hold on to the ball. Bad things are going to happen. And probably the least talked about great player in that league is Jarquez Hunter. That guy's a stud. An absolute stud. I'm going to try and do where I just draft myself, but the running backs in the SEC this year. And I love Hunter. You talk about making the most of a situation last year. Again, I mentioned Hugh takes that play call. Look at his numbers the last 5 games. Look how many yards they ran for. I think they went over 250 against Bama, and that's a week after that New Mexico State game. So there's some resiliency that I believe is built in Auburn just because of how crazy they are, and I love that about them. So I think it's 7-5. And I think that's a really, really good season for them where they could keep building. He could keep recruiting. So I would go under, but I think that's a super successful season at 7-5 with that schedule and what they have.
I'm going to go over. I think they can do 8-4.
Okay.
Which means they're going to have to steal one they're not supposed to win.
Which can happen at that home state.
Whether that's that. Yeah. And now they're going to Georgia, going to Alabama. Yeah, so that's it. They're going to have to win something on the road because I mentioned they have to go to Missouri. At Kentucky's no picnic either.
That's the one. Missouri or Kentucky, you're going to have to beat.
Yep.
And that's fun. That's a whole lot of fun.
That's it. I am so pumped up now. These are coming soon, Steve. Like we're 2.5 weeks away from Florida State, Georgia Tech, and Dublin. Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples on 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.